Happy Wednesday, boot campers. Welcome to the latest edition of This Week in Boot Camp. My name is Jeremy. Um, so crazy week, huh? Diving into these walk cycles and the runs, as a bonus lesson, but we're definitely stepping up our game here, right? As you've seen, walks are extremely technical. A lot going on, a lot of things to keep track of, arms and legs and torsos and heads moving and everything and all that kind of stuff. Don't fret, everybody. I know it's been a bit of a slow week. Don't have too many finished walk tweens to show this week. Like I said, I know it's a very difficult assignment, but keep working hard out there, guys. Push through. Once you get these walks down, it'll definitely help your character animation skills. So keep pushing this along. We'll critique when you get to them, but for now, we'll just take a look at a couple things. So far, really only have Joanna and Patrick's we can take a look at this week, but we'll run through a couple things. Let's start with Joanna's walk, and we'll loop it so we can take a look at it. But as mentioned, like I said, walks are very technical, as Morgan talks about in the lessons. And as you see how Morgan really pays attention to his values, to make sure, especially when we're doing something like this, like a looping walk cycle, it's very important to be very precise. Have your stride lengths be equal. So that's why Morgan's, pays so much strict attention to the number values he puts in for his, position values and rotation values. Try to keep things even and just make sure everything is synced up. So for something like this, it's definitely important to pay attention and don't just like randomly move, your sliders and your controllers around. You want to pay attention to those values and make sure everything's equal and even, because that's the only way you're going to get this looping cycle to sync up with the panning background and all that. We also got some bonus lessons to help you guys do walks, against static backgrounds and all that kind of stuff. But for this looping walk cycle, it's very important to do things very precisely. But anyway, taking a look at Joanna's here. This is extremely well done walk. Really smooth, a nice little casual walk here for Ollie. Arms are swinging back and forth nicely. Compared to Dolly's example in the lesson, Joanna went with a little less exaggerated arm swing, but I think it works very nicely for this character. He's a different body type and all that kind of stuff, and obviously, difference between man and woman, whatever. If you want to project that onto your character, I think for this it works. It works well for Ollie. We also got nice solid feet and leg movement here. You can see the feet are nice and locked down to the ground, which I know is like the most trickiest part of doing this type of exercise. But as mentioned, as long as your stride lengths are equal, you shouldn't have a problem with this. And the best way to adjust the speed of your background is like when the foot kind of touches like one of these little floor lines, kind of just scrub through the whole time that the foot is in contact with the floor. You want to make sure it stays in the same position the whole way, and you can adjust your background slider until that foot kind of just stays in place, and then you should have a synced up speed. And Joanna did a great job with that. But very solid stuff. Some little subtle head rotations, a little head bob gives a nice little casual feeling to it. But very solid example. And this exercise in particular, the key test is really important because it's a lot harder to make adjustments to a walk once everything is tweened and everything is kind of offset and all that. Because as you've seen, you're going to have a ton of keyframes on your timeline there, so it's a lot harder to keep track of things once it's all tweened. So definitely pay great attention in the key test and make sure your poses are locked down, your timing's good, and like I said, your your values are all precise and even. So if your key test is nice and solid, then the tweening should go pretty easily. So definitely the key test is the most important part of this exercise. But as I say, Joanna did a great job. Excellent work. Let's take a look at Patrick's. I want to show two versions of Patrick's. I'm going to show his first version because he made a subtle adjustment that I think is important to go over. So in general, this is a pretty good walk. Good form. Arms are moving nicely. Feet are nice and locked down. Like the feet are moving nicely, and he's walking nicely. But if you kind of pay attention, it's a little bit of an unbalanced walk. He has kind of a slight limp to it in a way. As you see this part here, he seems to come down a little bit lower than he does at any other part. If you scrub through, he's mostly kind of upright, straight up and down. And then in just this one side, this pose here on this side of the stride, he drops down a lot lower than at any other part of the walk. So it's making the walk feel a little bit unbalanced, and like I said, almost giving him a little bit of a limp because it's just this one step here. He kind of like drops down. So I just suggested to Patrick to adjust the height of the cog on this pose here, just lift it up a little bit so it's a little more in line with the rest of the poses. And we'll take a look at version 2 to show you the results of Patrick making that adjustment. And it's very subtle, and it wasn't a big adjustment, but as you can see, it just feels a little bit more even, I guess is the best way to say it. It's not as unbalanced as it was before. His torso and upper body kind of stays in relatively the same area, the same spot. So that kind of limp has disappeared. And it's much more like smooth and casual here. And, it was just a tiny little adjustment. And that's where the hard part of walks comes in. Like a slight little adjustment here and there can, throw everything off a little bit. So that's why, again, just to emphasize how important it is to be precise and really keep track of all your poses in the key test. Because I'm sure he only moved the cog up just a couple of clicks too on the arrow key, so it wasn't a huge adjustment, but it made a big difference in the end between kind of like eliminating a limp and making the walk feel a lot smoother. So that just shows you the importance of like little tiny adjustments and tweaks that can be a little bit tedious, but are very important in the end if you're trying to get the walk to look correct. So sometimes character animation can be tedious, but once you get more experience with this type of stuff, you'll be able to notice this stuff more on your own and be able to correct it a lot quicker, or even just avoid it in the first place. So those small adjustments make a huge difference. Everything else here is looking great. Nice, like I said, nice swing on the arms. Good form on the walk. Nice little head bob, with the offsetting and everything. Very solid walk. And, just a little bonus here. We'll go over a couple runs. Got the Joanna and Patrick show this week, but they both did a couple of runs as well. Oh, sorry, grabbed the wrong video there. That was the walk again. Here's the run. This is just a bonus lesson, but runs are pretty fun to do, as you'll see if you guys get a chance to do this lesson. Runs are definitely a lot more forgiving than walks, partly because they're a faster movement, so you can kind of get away with a couple more things because they'll be hidden, within the speed. But it's also a little less movements that, as you've seen, there's less poses to do and everything, but this is a very solid run from Joanna. A bit more of a little jog here. He's not going super fast, but that's totally cool. Maybe just getting a little bit of exercise in the lab between experiments. But he's not looking to completely tire himself out, but excellent form. This movement is a little more athletic. You don't have to do as much with the arms. You can get away with just more of a rocking back and forth. And like I said, there's less poses involved, so it's a lot less involved than the walk. And Patrick was able to do a run as well. Let's take a look at his quickly. Patrick has a little bit more of a loping run, I guess. It gets a little higher in the air than Joanna's character was, but works just the same. It has a lovely flow to it, nice and fluid. He's pumping his arms, putting in the work. Has a nice little up and down stride there. So very fun. Hope you guys get a chance to do the run, because like I said, it's a little more forgiving than the walk, so it might be a little less taxing on the brain and allow you guys to get a little bit more sleep too. But like I said, we're a little light on the tweens this week, but no problem, understandable. Like I said, I know the walks are really hard to do, but I really hope you guys are still working hard out there. Don't get too frustrated. Just remember, pay attention to the little things and everything should be fine. You guys should spit out some awesome walks. Practice makes perfect with this type of exercise. So keep working hard, guys, and we'll talk to you next week.